Someone be like, welcome to Frozen Biscuits. Yeah, we're good. Good morning and welcome to Frozen Biscuits with Eggs. My name is Dillon Kneucker. I'm with my co-host.
Solon, Mihas.
And we will currently be talking about hockey and everything that is going on in the hockey world today. I feel like the best place to start right now is at the bottom of the league. The race for Connor Bernard, obviously the best prospect probably since Conor McGregor. Right now, Columbus has the highest odds for him, followed by San Jose and Chicago.
I'm just gonna stop you right there. Connor McDavid. You said McGregor.
Oh, Connor
McDavid.
McDavid.
Wrong sport. It's all right. But yeah, as you said, Connor Bedard, he's probably the best prospect to come out of any league since Connor McDavid. Arguably even Sidney Crosby. I mean, this kid's putting up astronomical numbers that we haven't seen in, I think, ever, to be honest with you. So, as you said, right now there's obviously a race to win a Stanley Cup, but there's also a race with teams that aren't in that Stanley Cup playoff race in terms of who's going to get the best player in the draft.
Now, what do you think a player like that does to your franchise? Say you're the Columbus Blue Jackets and number one overall, you take him. Where do you think he's going to lead you down the road? Because, look, historically, rookies in the NHL, there's a feeling out period. Do you think he'll pick it up right away, or do you think, hey, if we get Connor, he's going to be good, and we're going to be good?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where he's gonna be a huge addition to the team no matter where he goes. Even to a team like Columbus or San Jose, two teams that really don't have much of anything right now. And a player like that will make that team a playoff contender. But similar to the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid, who's arguably the best player in the world right now, he's not even guaranteeing the Oilers a playoff run every single year either. And he's putting up numbers that we haven't seen in the NHL in decades. So I think that there's a very high chance that he could do great things, but then again, it's not a one man show. Hockey's a team sport.
I agree. I mean, obviously, there's no moral victories in hockey, but Adam Fantilli from University of Michigan, good prospect. Mativ Mikchov from Sochi, Russia, is another good prospect. Obviously, they're not in that upper tier, but there's still people to be taken after him.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say those names, Adam Fantilli, Michkov, all those names have been around that Connor Bedard sweepstakes for first overall for since years ago. So Adam Fantilli this year, I think he's up to win Rookie of the Year, best college Rookie of the Year. He led the nation in points as a rookie. Michkov, I could have guaranteed you that he was going second overall, except he's under contract with the KHL until 2025. So that could hurt his draft stock a little bit, but then again, I don't see him going much lower than 3 or 4, and anything below that, I think, in my eyes, is a steal.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. Yeah, even if you're under contract till 2025, if you have that type of talent, 2 years doesn't hurt you. And still, you're playing professionally overseas. That's not a negative experience to have on your resume if you're getting drafted.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Good transition now into the playoff picture. So obviously, I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Boston Bruins, arguably the best season we've ever seen. The fastest team, this 50 points ever.
50 wins.
50 wins, yep. Obviously, their last 10, 7-3. They have clinched a playoff berth, so there's no chance that they have a fluke and don't make it. Other than that, everything is heating up, obviously, between the Islanders, Panthers, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, and even Washington could sneak into that final two wildcard spots. So, yeah, it's heating up.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Bees real quick, as you said, they're having a historic season. They were the fastest team to 50 wins, as you mentioned. Took them 64 games. They've clinched a playoff spot, and they're also the only team in the NHL to have done so this far.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like anybody's really going to touch them anytime soon. So now it's time to see if playoff time they're going to keep that same pace, or if mentality changes, or if other teams are going to catch up just because it's the playoffs. And obviously all those emotions play a factor in those games.
Not even just that, they got better, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the trade deadline, extending Pasternak for the future, they're looking good. Even if Brad hangs it up. I think they still have a very good future in front of them. Linus isn't that old, and he's probably the best goalie in the NHL right now.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. As you said, they made some additions in the during the deadline. Taylor Hall went down. He's on the LTIR. That could have him out until at least playoff time. What do? They went out and got a Tyler Bertuzzi. Who's Tyler Bertuzzi? For those of you who don't know, he's basically a second Brad Marchand. He's a rat to play against, but you love him on your team. So not only did they get better, as you mentioned, they have arguably the best goalie in the NHL right now, Linus Ullmark. He's 27-3-3. I'm sorry, wrong stat. The Bruins are 27-3-3 at home, but that's obviously not possible without goaltending. That's as spectacular as Ullmark and Swayman have given the Bees this year.
Yeah.
So they have a Vezina, arguably a Vezina Trophy finalist going to the end of this year. They've extended Pabst. They've gone Tyler Bertuzzi, and they're going into the playoffs red hot.
I think one thing that people don't give the Bruins enough credit for is the depth of their defense.
Not at all.
You look at the Bruins defense, Clifty, Grzelcyk, they have a whole bunch of dogs on that back line. No one really looks at them because they look at the numbers that Ullmark is putting up and they look at the numbers that the front line is putting up. But I would say that defense is the backbone of their offense, their backbone of their team, rather. And I think the Bruins will go as far as their defense and their health can take them. Obviously, the Bruins, they're an older team. They need to keep themselves healthy if they really want to compete for a Stanley Cup Finals, and that's really the only concern I have with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, their defense is their backbone right now. Obviously, the forwards are going to do what they do, and that's score goals, but you need someone to keep the puck out of the net.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, the goalie's not going to do it all by himself. The Bees are going to go as far as their defense and their goaltending brings them. As you said, they're an older squad, but that really hasn't seemed to affect them much this year. They were questionable to even be a playoff team this year, and they're running away with one of the best seasons we've seen in God knows how long in hockey. As you mentioned, their D is they have a lot of very good defensemen, depth D, defensive D, offensive D, you name it, they have it.
Yep.
So the Bruins, right now, as you said, they're going to go as far as the defense and their goaltenders bring them, and that ceiling could be the Stanley Cup.
I also want to pick your brain a little bit. Islanders holding on to that top wild card spot right now. Do you think they hold on to that, or do you think?
I'm going to be honest. I'm an Islander fan. When we talk hockey, I don't generally like to talk bias. I like to talk with an open mind. I think that the Islanders will hold on to a wild card spot. I think it could be the second wild card spot, but nonetheless, one or two, it's a wild card spot. I think that the Islanders have been heating up a little bit while other teams around them, like the Pittsburgh Penguins, have been slowing down. The Penguins are on a 4-game losing streak, but then you have other teams like the Florida Panthers who are on a 3-game winning streak and have won 7 of their last 8 games. So it's gonna be a very close battle. You mentioned other teams before, like the Capitals and the Senators. A lot of those teams, they've kind of dropped off. They've accepted the fact that they can't make that push. So I think that race right now is between the Islanders, the Panthers, and the Penguins. I think right now at the rate that the season's coming to an end, I think that the Islanders do hold on to a wild card spot, but I think it could be the second.
And something important to note is, talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby. There's speculation, he hasn't come out and said it, there's speculation that Sid the Kid may no longer be playing the game. Honestly, personally, I think he's coming back. I think him and Ovechkin are both coming back. But what do you think it would look like without either of those players?
It wouldn't be hockey as we know it. I mean, those are our childhood favorites. Yeah. I mean, those are kids that we grew up pretending to be, we wore their jerseys to every game that we went to. Yeah. And the NHL without those players is an NHL that I don't really want to think about yet. And as you said, I mean, Crosby's closing up his 18th season, going for his 19th next year. I don't think he's anywhere near done. He's still at a point per game. He's the only player in NHL history to have recorded at least a point per game in 18 consecutive seasons, and that's the only amount of seasons he's played. And then going back to Ovechkin, as you said, he's the best goal scorer of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the only man that's really pushed Gretzky's record, and he's under contract for another few years, and I don't think he leaves without breaking the record, but I also don't think he leaves anytime soon.
I can get behind that. I would love to see him play a few more seasons. Here's one other thing in the Eastern Conference. We were talking about this a little bit before the show. The Philadelphia Flyers did not end up trading JVR. I think that was a very underrated move because he's a little more expensive, but he is a good wing player to have for a playoff team. He could be that guy on your second or third line that could really get you over the top. And I'm interested to see how that'll affect teams going down the stretch because they may not have that guy on that second or third wing. That is like a JVR.
Yeah, I mean, James Van Riemsdyk, I said he's more on the expensive side. The Flyers could have traded him. A lot of people speculated that they were going to trade him, and they ended up holding on to him past the trade deadline. With that being said, I think that the Flyers are missing out on assets that they could have acquired with JVR, waiting towards not the deadline, but the draft deadline. You're not going to get as much for him, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think he's more valuable at the trade deadline when playoff teams are looking for those wingers, those depth players that generally win you championships. Looking back at the last few champions, those third, fourth line grinders that teams acquire at the deadline, those are the players that do the dirty work and end up being the playoff heroes, even if it's quietly.
Yeah.
So I think that JVR should have been traded. I think that the Flyers could have gotten something, even if it may have not been a lot. They could have gotten something for him, which they didn't, which only sets them back considering that they're in a rebuild. And in a rebuild, you want to get as many assets as you can.
Yeah. As a resident Flyers fan, it's painful.
Yeah.
Although I love JVR. Went to high school with him. Not like actually, but I went to the same high school as him. So,
Still counts. We'll give you credit for it. I mean, going over real quick to the Western Conference.
Yep.
I mean, the playoff picture doesn't seem as exciting. Not nearly as exciting as the Eastern Conference. Their playoff race is nowhere near over, but all eyes are on the Eastern Conference simply because of how much tighter it is, how much more power there's been basically headed over to the East in terms of players. And the Western Conference is in a silent race. The Dallas Stars, one team to take right off the bat. They're a team that I think a lot of people are overlooking.
I agree.
For the simple fact that I genuinely believe that they can make a Stanley Cup playoff run. I think that they could go deep. I think that they can make a finals. And I don't think anyone's talking about it, which is crazy to me because they have some very, very good players in that system that are just getting overlooked because the East is a powerhouse.
Yeah. To go off of that, part of the reason I feel like Dallas has slept on is they went on a bad losing streak, I think either 2 or 3 weeks ago. And everyone was like, oh, Dallas, true colors are shown. But no, I agree with you. Dallas is slowly and quietly building themselves up to be a very dangerous team to face in the postseason. And I really don't think a lot of teams want to meet them there. Another notable team to look at, Edmonton, obviously, always a risk. Anytime you have the best player in the world on your team, you're going to be dangerous. They beat the Bruins a week or two ago. Not saying that will happen again, but I wouldn't bet against them to beat the Bruins. There's definitely, as we said, the West isn't as exciting, but there's still a race going on.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the wild card race right now, Seattle holds the first wild card spot, Winnipeg holds the second. Calgary and Nashville are at 3 and 4, just outside the playoff picture. And realistically, they have between 10 and 13 games left.
Yep.
And a lot of these teams have not been doing so hot. I mean, they've been streaky, but all of Seattle, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Nashville all lost their last game.
Yep.
And that's not what you want to see when you're in for a playoff spot.
Also important to note that Winnipeg and Calgary both have losing records in their last 10 games.
Yeah, they do. And speaking of that, Seattle and Nashville are Nashville's even, and Seattle's one game over 500.
Yep.
So it's not even like you're seeing much come from these teams, but then again, there's a race. It's going to be exciting. They still have a lot of hockey to play for, and Seattle could be in their first ever playoffs in only their second ever season, which minus the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Coming from a season that they had last year to essentially almost being a playoff team, that's impressive in my eyes because working with an expansion team, you're not working with a lot.
Yeah, no. I think the Vegas Golden Knights set that bar very, very high when they said, "Hey, we're going to be an expansion team and go to the NHL Finals our first year in the league." I think that's a very high bar to hit. I think Seattle has obviously they didn't hit it, but making a playoff push your second year as an expansion team, that's very impressive and nothing to sneeze at. So I think I think that's important to note. I feel like I don't really know if any wild card is going to be as tough as an out in the West as they will be in the East, but obviously it's playoff hockey. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love hockey. Hockey, anything could happen. I mean, completely off topic, but look at what's going on with March Madness recently. A
Yeah,
lot of upsets, and that's the beauty of sports. That's kind of the beauty of the tournament style playoffs.
yeah,
It allows for upsets and it allows for more excitement. And speaking of excitement, one playoff matchup that we could see potentially in the playoffs at some point, whether it's the first or second round, is Vegas versus LA. And the reason I want to talk about that and bring that matchup up, or the potential matchup of that playoff series, is the fact that the LA Kings have recently traded their longtime franchise goaltender, Jonathan Quick,
yep,
to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Jonas Corposalo. Jonathan Quick and fellow teammates such as Dustin Brown, Anze Kopitar, they were not very happy with the news that Quick got traded,
yep.
especially because he was not in the talks, which I think is wrong for a 14-year veteran of a team.
I agree, especially when he's been that goalie who has won you a Stanley Cup,
Two Stanley
two
Cups.
Stanley Cups. Yeah,
So double that. That's even more to appreciate. And you kind of just pushed him away, which I understand he's at the end of his career, but there's a lot better ways to go about that road. And long story short, Jonathan Quick did not last very long in Columbus, being traded once again after trade deadline to the Vegas Golden Knights, who obviously are not very friendly with the Los Angeles Kings.
yes. Obviously, you just got that very close geographically. To build on that, Los Angeles, they scare me. I'll be honest with you. I think Anze Kopitar is phenomenal. I really enjoy watching that man play hockey. I think he's very good. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves because he's playing hockey in LA, and I don't really think LA people care all that much about hockey.
At least not when you're not in the Stanley Cup championship
Yeah,
conversation, which they're not right now. I mean, they can make a push for it, but they're obviously not in those high talks, considering that, as we've been talking about, the East powerhouse.
yeah,
I mean, the Kings have added Corpusalo as their new starting goalie. They have Cal Peterson in the minors right now because his contract's too expensive. But come playoff time, they have goaltending options. They have the defense, and as you mentioned, they have forwards
yeah.
such as Anze Kopitar, who not only puts pucks in the net, but he's one of the best forwards keeping the puck out of the net in his own defensive zone. Anze Kopitar has been one of the best defensive forwards in the league for over a decade,
Yep.
and it's no surprise that he wants to make another push for a cup with the Kings.
And like we were saying about the Bruins in playoff hockey, you need those forwards who will go, "Hey, I'll keep this puck. I'll sacrifice my offensive ability to help just keep the puck out of net." And you need that, to be honest with you. And when it comes playoff time, you need to do anything you can to win. So having a guy like Kopitar is a big advantage, even though they really won't make a Stanley Cup push. It's important to look at players like him, where it's like this guy is a two-way forward, and he's going to be very pivotal in our playoff run.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's there's a lot of players that could silently lead you to a trophy.
I agree.
And just as a general talk right now, there have been a lot of players traded and moved this trade deadline that were not any silent third, fourth line, grimy, chippy players.
Yep.
There were some superstars being moved, and I just want to get your thought quick on what you think that could potentially do to hockey in terms of look at what the Rangers have done acquiring not only Vladimir Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues, but then on top of that, trading for Patrick Kane from the Chicago Blackhawks. which has made them on paper look like a super team.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think a big part of it is they're trying to keep up with Boston, which, to do with it what you will, I'm not really too concerned about the future of hockey. Like, it's not like basketball where like all these big movements end up in one division and you're like, oh, this division is just going to win the finals no matter what. I think hockey is a much more balanced sport, and I think people take more pride in hockey playing for who they play for rather than NBA. I feel like NHL players love to wear that jersey on their chest. Not saying NBA players don't, but they're much more willing to stay through the thick and thin just to get to the big stage with that team that took them rather than moving across the league. Like obviously with Patty Kane and Tarasenko, a little older. They're on their
Yeah, different situations.
they're on their like, not that they're gonna be out soon, but they're starting to decline. So I think they were just trying to make a final push to get one more. In the case of Patty Kane, to get one more Stanley Cup final. So yeah, I'm not really too concerned about it, but it was interesting to note.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that this year's playoffs are going to be very exciting.
I agree.
Both ends, both East and West. I think that East is obviously going to be more exciting in terms of skill and just goals and all that good stuff. But I think that the West is going to be a war. I think that whatever teams comes out of the West is going to wear down
Yeah,
that Eastern Conference winner
I agree.
in the finals.
There's not gonna be a
Because
sweep in the Stanley Cup Finals.
no,
It's gonna be a
it's
tough 6-7 game
yeah. I
series.
think I think that whoever comes out of the West is going to be able to hold their own, even against the Boston, a New Jersey, Carolina, Rangers. I think whoever it is, they could hold their own, and I'm excited for that. I mean, as of right now, looking at the playoff picture, one of two of these four teams will be out of the playoffs after the first round.
Yep.
The Devils, the Rangers, the Maple Leafs, and the Lightning. Those are four Stanley Cup contending teams,
Yep.
and out of those four teams, two of them will be on the golf course after the first round.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot to look forward to in the playoffs. I think that there's a lot to play for, and I think that a lot of teams went all in this year, at least in the Eastern Conference, and that'll make it a very, very exciting few weeks
think
of playoff hockey.
I think one more quick thing to note is the parity of the NHL is going to massively improve the audience rating of the NHL. Obviously, the NHL doesn't sell as well as other sports, but with playoffs like these ones we have coming up, I really think it'll boost those ratings a whole bunch.
Yeah, me too. I mean, especially where we are here in the Northeast. I think with so many teams being on the uprise, I think that that's only coming off on sports fans as a whole. I mean, the NHL is now on ESPN. They just signed that new deal a couple seasons ago. So the NHL is on an uprise, and I'm excited for that because I've been a fan since a little kid, and now they're finally starting to get the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been a fan that long. I've been a fan for probably the past 3 years, but obviously, once I feel like once you start watching hockey, you don't stop. It's just such a fun sport to watch, and I really have enjoyed this season, and I really look forward to the playoffs because I really think it will be the best playoffs that I've watched in my life. Obviously, there were great performances early 2000s, early 2010s. I wasn't watching them. Now I'm watching. Now I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, I've been watching for many years, and I'm just as excited as I ever was. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot at stake for
Yeah,
a lot of teams. So I think we're gonna have a war zone, and it's gonna be exciting to live through.
I agree. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for listening. My name is Dylan,
I'm Solon.
and this was morning biscuits and eggs, frozen biscuits and eggs.